so glad you are tuning in to our Life Change Church Sermon Podcast. Let's open our hearts to hear the Word of God and let it bring a change that only Jesus can bring.
What's up, Life Change Church family? I'm so happy that you're joining us on this Sunday. Well, it's February, and February is known as Black History Month, and we want to thank God for those who have gone before us to lay a path, a foundation for us to walk in, and not just for Black people, but for all people. February is also known as a time to talk about relationships. You know, as God's creatures, we are built for relationships. Not always romantic relationships, but relationships in general. And let's dispense with the notion that February and Valentine's Day is only for lovers. It's for relationships, any type of relationships. So if you're in love, out of love, or between loves, you can still find love in the fact of first loving yourself. How about loving and being loved by God? How about other relationships that bring us love and loving feelings? It could be a family member, a special friend, or even a pet. In this mini sermon series, we're going to get raw and at times direct. This is a PG-13 series and for mature audiences only. We're going to talk about relationships, sex, intimacy, and not just those things, but our warped views. In fact, the name of this series is Warped because a lot of us have warped views, warped expectations as it relates to relationships, sex, and intimacy. And don't think for a moment that this series is only for married folks, but singles, married folks who want to be single, singles who want to be married, for straight, bi, gay, or any combination. Listen and invite a friend to join you. Well, enough of the preliminaries. Let's get busy with some incredible worship. You ready? Let's go.
Buried beneath my shame. Who could carry that kind of weight? It was my tomb till I met you. I was breathing but not alive. All my failures I tried to hide. It was my tomb till I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness into your glorious day. You called my when I met you. You called my name and I ran out of that grave, out of the dark. I needed rescue, my sin was heavy, but chains break at the weight of your glory. I needed shelter, I was an orphan, now you call me a citizen of heaven.
When I was broken, you were my healing. Now your love is the air that I'm breathing.
I have a future, my eyes are open.
'Cause when you called my name, I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You called my name, and I ran out of that grave, out of the darkness, into your glorious day. You are breaking me. You are building me. You're restoring me. Just by loving me, I swallow up my pride as you hold my head up high. 'Cause I am learning, I'm learning to love you, I'm learning to praise you, no matter what comes my way. I'm learning to trust you, I'm learning to break through, no matter what comes my way. I'm learning.
Don't be discouraged, just keep going. You are guiding me. You are teaching me. Yeah. You are molding me. Just by loving me, I swallow up my pride as you hold my head up high. 'Cause as you hold my head up high. I swallow up my pride as you hold my head up high. Sing the chorus. I'm
learning to love you. I'm learning to praise you. No matter what comes my way. I'm learning to trust you. I'm learning to break through. No matter what.
Come on, sing it again, sing it again.
I'm learning to love you. I'm learning to praise you. No matter what comes my way. I'm learning to trust you. I'm learning to break through. No matter what comes my way. I'm learning. I'm learning.
I'm learning that your ways are higher. I'm learning that your love is greater than anything that I've tasted,
Breakthrough.
than anything I've tasted. You are teaching me.
Breakthrough.
You are teaching me.
Breakthrough.
Just by loving me.
Breakthrough.
Just by loving me. Just by loving me. I'm gonna break through, break through. Yeah, yes you are. Yes I am. Yes we are.
Breakthrough.
God's not through with us.
Breakthrough.
God's not through with us.
Breakthrough.
God hasn't given us a spirit of fear.
Breakthrough.
But a spirit of power, love, and a sound mind.
Breakthrough.
One more time.
Holy Spirit, breakthrough. Breakthrough. Breakthrough.
Yeah.
Breakthrough.
So I swallow up my pride as you hold my head up high. I swallow up my stubbornness and all my weaknesses as you hold my head up high. And today, Father, we just say thank you for your love.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
We thank you for your kindness.
Thank you.
That leads us into repentance.
Thank thank you.
Hey, life changers, were you blessed by that worship? I know I was. I got a question for you. Are you blessed by the ministry of Life Change Church? I'll wait for your answer. If you are, I got a request. Will you consider partnering with us on a consistent basis? Your partnering includes praying with and for us, joining us for our services, those that are virtual and those that are in person, but it also includes sharing your financial resources. I want to ask you, even urge you, to return the blessing that you've been receiving by sowing a regular financial gift into this ministry so that we can continue to serve you and make a real life change for other people too. Simply go to thechangeSA.org. Click the Give tab and you'll find the 4 different ways that you can give to this ministry. Thank you. And your giving is making a change. Hey, Life Change Church family. As you can see, I'm here surrounded by our Mosaic leaders, Frankie and Demetria. And I'm so happy that y'all are joining us because, as we are in this series called Warped, we're dealing with warped views and thoughts of relationships, sex, and intimacy. And it dawned on me that this topic really is not just for the adults, but for the youth as well. So I recruited our best and our brightest to share some wisdom and their thoughts as it relates to this topic and our young people. And so we're going to share some wisdom and insight that I believe is going to bless you. Because we're talking about a really important topic that really wasn't brought up much. I don't know in your home, but in our home, nobody really talked about sex. There was not much, if any, talk about it. In fact, the only thing I can remember is when my mom and dad suspected I was having sex, and my dad pulled me to the side and he said, "Do you have some prophylactics?" I said, what? Like, what are you talking about, Dad? I thought he was talking about Viagra for young people or something. I don't know. But really, prophylactics are an old school term for condoms. And so basically, he was asking me if I had any condoms. And that was the extent of it. That was the extent of my whole growing up years talking about sex. And you can imagine, because I was really left alone to try to figure out relationships, sex, and intimacy all on my own. And you can guess how that ended up. Not too well. But when we talk about this hard subject, yeah, it's a little embarrassing maybe, it's a little taboo, and because we felt like that as adults, we really didn't teach our children like we should have, and really we've done a disservice, all for our comfort really, because we didn't want to be uncomfortable sharing some of those things. But you know what, it's time out for that. We need to have real honest conversations, and that's why I'm so happy that each of you have said yes to sharing in this conversation as we talk about warped expectations as it relates to our young people and our next generation. When I became a parent, I said, I'm going to handle this sex thing with my kids a little differently. And as parents, Sharon and I, we constantly drilled into our kids, sex is God's gift for husbands and wives. And it's a no for you, it's for married couples. And we talked about the sanctity of sex for marriage. But, I thought I was equipping my daughters and my son better than my parents did for me. But I now know that I didn't go far enough. Right. I didn't press the envelope. I didn't get into their world enough. I didn't deal with some of the things that they're having to deal with at their age, and I didn't encourage them to ask me real questions. Even when they did have the courage to bring something to me, I kind of tiptoed around it, kind of with the safe answers versus being totally direct and real, and even sharing some of my screw ups.
Right.
I was trying to paint the best picture of being a Christian and all of that stuff, but I really did them a disservice because I didn't go far enough. And sometimes the other extreme happened. Sometimes they would have the courage to bring me some issues, and I'm like, "What? You can't be talking about that." I basically blew a gasket. I did all the wrong things. So I'm glad you're tuning in so that you can learn from me and us of what not to do.
Right.
Because unfortunately, life and society and family upbringings and the media really does impact our view of sex and relationships and intimacies. And I got to be honest, ladies, it's really warped.
Yes.
My view, and unfortunately, the view for many of those in my family, and I know it's not just my family, I know it's taking a toll on your family too. And that's why it's so freaking important for churches and for families to have some real, and I mean real conversations about this topic. And so, as you know, I'm joined by our incredible team of Mosaic leaders, Frankie and Demetria. And again, thank you, ladies, for being here. By the way, if you don't know what Mosaic is, it's the name of our children's and youth ministry at Life Change Church. So I'm looking forward to gaining some of your thoughts and wisdom and insight around this important topic. And so I'm going to ask a few questions, and I want to hear what your thoughts are. And I just believe God's going to speak to us, speak to you. And I believe that our lives, our family, our church, our community is going to be better as a result. Because when we come out of the shadows and we talk about real issues and bring it to the light of Jesus, he has a way of turning things around.
Amen.
So, guys, thank you again for joining me on this all-important topic of how do we prevent or at least alleviate these warped views of relationships and sex and intimacy on this next generation of youth and children. So let's begin by sharing some topics. You don't have to share any names, but things that you have heard from other parents or you yourselves as parents, things that you've heard from your children or from other youth about some of these real life topics that our youth are having to face in their relationships. So who wants to go first?
I can definitely go first. As cringy as it may sound, right? We talk about these things all the time, I think, amongst ourselves. But I had an opportunity actually to speak to a group of elementary students, kids, and I ran across this fourth grader who let me know that one of his friends was bisexual.
Wow.
And it was shocking to me.
Did you say fourth grade?
Fourth grade.
Wow.
You're what, 8 or 9 in fourth grade, I believe. And so, it shocked me that this fourth grader even knew what bisexuality was. And same sex as well. I mean, just, that they are, gay or they're exploring in that grade to me is
I'm shocked.
Crazy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Demetria, what are some of the things that you're hearing from our next generation?
I would say that there are just very real barriers between a lot of young people and their parents. They don't view their parents as a safe place. And so if and when they don't view their parents as a safe place, they're going to everyone else. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Yeah. It can be, but obviously we know the advice you get on the street sometimes is not necessarily conducive, to good behavior and just properly broaching the subject and understanding it. And so that is definitely something that I've heard from quite a few people. And just earlier today, I'm so glad to say I had an opportunity to talk to my son, and I really wanted to explore.
How did that go?
It went well. Because sometimes you don't know how your children perceive you. You're so busy trying to help other people, you don't know how they perceive you. And I asked him some very pointed questions because, I had some concerns. And I just really wanted to hear what he had to say. And I know that it's so common to say, oh, I'm well. Someone asks you how you're doing. Oh, I'm fine. But a lot of times we aren't fine.
Right.
And so instead of just allowing that to rest on that, I don't have anything I want to talk to you about, Mom, I explored that. I began to ask him questions.
In a little bit more.
And so he began to open up more. The thing that made me so happy about that interaction was that I asked him, am I a safe place for you? And he said, yes, Mom, I feel like I can talk to you about anything, and
that's so
that
awesome.
really gave me a lot of joy because sometimes as a parent, I'm not sure if I am a safe place for my children. And so it's just a blessing.
Wow. I'm still blown away with having to decipher and go through and try to understand sexuality in the 4th grade.
Right.
That's
oh my goodness.
That's shocking.
It is it's a scary thought for a parent, and I'm sure even more mind-boggling for a child. And a lot of times our kids see that on TV. You can turn on the news, and there's a show right after the news, and you're like, oh my gosh,
Wow.
So there's a lot that they're seeing that we can't always catch as parents.
Right.
So
and I'm an adult covering my eyes.
Yeah,
a lot of the
right?
stuff that's going on.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and I like what you said too, just in terms of getting on their level and really pushing the envelope sometimes. And you're right. If kids don't have a safe place to be able to go to their parents, then they're asking their friends, and so they don't know the answer, and they're asking somebody who also doesn't know the answer. So you already know how that's going to turn out.
Right.
Absolutely.
Well, so this generation of middle and high schoolers, are dealing with things that I dealt with when I was in my 20s or late 20s, and they're having to deal with it in middle school, elementary school.
That's right.
And
Scary.
so it is. So let me ask each of you, because you're parents as well, what can parents do more of, and what can parents do less of as it relates to helping their children with these topics?
I'll go. I'll say definitely listen with the intent to gain an understanding of what your child or children are communicating with you. Because, I know I've been guilty of it. I'll say that, we'll listen, but sometimes we're just waiting for our opportunity to chime in or tell them what they're doing wrong, as opposed to actively listening with the intent of gaining that understanding and really hearing what they're communicating, so we can truly give them, tools for properly addressing whatever it is that they're facing.
Why do you think it's so hard sometimes as parents, and specific adults in general, or anybody, to listen with understanding?
You know what? I think sometimes, particularly as parents, we already feel that we have the answer, but we aren't our children, and our children aren't us.
Wow,
so in
good.
my experience, my mom, bless her heart, she was so concerned that because she got pregnant at a really young age, so even though I don't even think I gave her any, reason to think I would follow behind her, but automatically it was just like, I did this, so you're surely gonna do it. And so the grip on me was just overwhelming.
Wow.
So I would advise parents, not just because of
So
my
good.
experience, but things I've come to witness and hear from other young people, that we can't make what we did their problem.
Yeah.
They aren't us. We need to, yes, we want to advise them, but we can't shackle them to our past. And that's what happens a lot of the
Being
time.
overprotective.
Yes.
Yeah. So good. So, Frankie, what would you say in terms of what parents can do more of or less of?
I would agree with Demetria. Definitely more listening. But parents, I really want you guys to know that every relationship takes work. Our
Yes.
friendship takes
Yeah.
work.
Yes.
And being intentional. And I think that as parents, we have to understand that even our relationship with our kids takes work.
Yes.
And sometimes we're not always going to like to do the work, right?
Right.
Even in
Yeah.
our marriages
Right.
and all of that.
Such a good point.
And so sometimes it's hard and it is tough to be a parent. It is tough to be a parent now,
Yes.
today,
It is.
Yeah.
and everything that's going on. And so I would really just give advice to just take yourself out of your own self, and really take the time to just listen to your children, to love on them, even when it's difficult, and to always remember that if we think that they're facing a tough situation in their little minds, it's 10 times what we think it is.
Yes.
And so being there for them and always just being willing to put in the work and to always be that safe place for them.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, so good.
That's good, Frankie. And I would say model transparency.
What does that
Because
look like?
We want our children to be open and honest with us, but they can see a side of us like you want to know me, but I feel like I still don't know you. And I can only imagine what
Yeah.
that looks like for them. So, model transparency.
But isn't that risky though?
It can be, but they are worth the risk. Because otherwise, it could be the opposite extreme that they're not talking to you. There's no communication, and that's where lots of breakdowns come in because, again, they're listening to
Yeah.
people who, quite frankly, may not be that invested in them,
Yeah.
and clearly and surely are not as invested in them as we are as their parents.
Yeah. I hope you're getting this. I hope you're picking up what we're dropping because this is some good stuff. As youth, and Frankie, you were saying this, it was hard growing up as a teenager with peer pressure for us, and that was decades ago. Don't laugh.
It might have been a little
Don't
bit
laugh.
I mean, maybe for y'all, it wasn't decades ago for me.
Oh, yeah, right. But we were dealing with a whole lot of stuff, and our youth today are dealing with, like you said, 10 times, 100
Yes.
times
Yes.
the things that we had to deal with. And,
Yes.
it's so hard doing the right thing as a young person
Yes.
with peer pressure and so much of the media's influence. When so many of their friends are making wrong choices, what would you say to any youth that may be listening that is trying to do the right thing, but they're surrounded by a whole lot of others that are doing the wrong thing? What would you say to a youth that's struggling?
I have been that young person, and as an adult, I'm still that person in some ways, struggling to do the right
Yeah.
thing. I'm reminded of a scripture that says, "There is a way that appears right unto a man, but the end thereof is death." And so I think I just really, because I'm not trying to do it in my own strength, I'm not trying to do it according to my own understanding. You really have to seek God and ask Him for help in that thing and through that thing, because there is not one struggle that we have that we can overcome it on our own. It's not in our own strength at all, but it's in His strength and according to His wisdom.
Yeah, such a good word and such a good reminder. Yeah, that we can't do it in and of our own selves.
No, not at all.
Yeah. What would you say, Frankie?
Oh gosh. To find that safe place, even if it's not your parents, even if it's, we of course we want it to be your parents always, but there is so much going on in the world, and sometimes our friends are not always right, and the path to follow Jesus, one, you're never alone. You're never
Amen.
alone, but the
Amen.
path is narrow. And,
Yes.
if you are not of this world, and I promise you that the reward is so beautiful.
Yes.
If you just are patient and you wait And I know that that is a lot for a child, you know. But I wish that someone would have told me that the reward is great.
Yes.
And that God loves you so much. So much.
Yes.
But that the path is narrow. And it's not always going to be easy, but it is the right thing to do, to follow God.
I love that, Frankie.
Yeah.
And
Isn't that good?
he loves us so much that he allows us to choose.
Yes.
It's our choice
Right.
which direction we want to go. But of course, he wants us to choose the right path, and he'll absolutely help us through that right path.
Yeah.
That's so good. You know, I hadn't planned for this, but I want to put you all on the spot a little bit. Uh-oh. I want you to look into that camera to maybe imagine your younger self.
Oh, boy.
And what advice, what few sentences or words would you say to that young person that's viewing today, but really to your younger self as well? You want to go first, Demetria?
I'm gonna pass this. I'm gonna draw on my lifeline. Come on.
I love that.
All right.
I would tell my younger self that you are loved, you are valued, and you are so much more than this world has to offer. And that you are never alone.
Wow.
I am always here, and you can always lean on me.
That's awesome. What about you?
Back to me, huh?
Yes.
I would tell my younger self that you're going to experience some rough times, but guess what? You're going to come out on the other side of that.
That's right.
Because the one thing that has always been there, or at least as long as you can remember, is your faith in God. So you are a winner, you are a survivor,
Yes.
and yes, you are loved, and you are worth it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love you.
Yep. That's right.
Such a good word. I hope you're getting this. This is a blessing. Well, just this week I was talking to a young man that described himself as being polyamorous. That's a big fancy name. Back in the day, we called it just being a player. Just player, you just playing. But there are so many names, words, and labels for acting out and for our identity. In fact, I was doing some research and for a sermon that we dealt with dealing with homosexuality and found out when I was doing some research that a social media company identified 71 different gender options.
Wow.
Right, 71. Who would have ever imagined? So my question is, what does God have to say about relationships, sex, and intimacy for a young person? That's a good question, huh?
It's a very good question. In considering that, I'm going to try to take you through a quick walk through the story of Adam and Eve, because that's what came to mind.
Yeah, absolutely.
Adam was solely placed in the garden, or positioned in the garden, alone with God. In that time, he had the opportunity to establish a close, personal, and intimate relationship with God first.
By himself.
Absolutely.
Wow, that's good.
And it was absent of anyone else's expectations. It was absent of the ability for someone else to give him his identity outside of God. And the Lord defined his role in that garden. No one else was there.
Yeah.
Right.
And then when he did decide to bring a companion, he didn't refer to her as a girlfriend. Okay? He referred to her as a wife.
Yeah.
Okay? And in that, when the Lord did bring Eve, at that point, God had already told Adam everything he needed to know to properly steward his role in that garden.
Wow, that's good.
Now, you know what happened?
What?
That
Tell us.
lovely woman came on in there.
Uh-oh.
And you know what? Adam,
Watch out, guys.
he knew full well his role. He had his identity because God didn't bring her immediately. He had to get that established. You know how our identity somehow gets fixed in other people, and other people define us. And when the Lord brought Eve, he could have brought a lot of people a lot of options. You know how we want to have options. We don't want, we don't think God knows that much that he can possibly know that this one is who is suitable for us. He didn't say find someone who is compatible. He said suitable. And he didn't say I'm going to put in the garden 5 women because I want you to decide which one you like the most. He brought a wife who was suitable, a helper. And I think therein he was already establishing how he wants us to go into our relationships. God first. Yeah. And you're gonna know your role, and you're gonna have identity in me alone. So when I bring that person, whatever that relationship looks like, they won't define you, and you won't. You'll already know your role, and so you'll operate in that role. But you know what? That fall was a mere example of what happens when we don't stay in our lane. We allow someone else to come along, and now we listen to what they tell us we're supposed to be doing. That's why that apple looks so much better, because, he got out of his lane and he listened to her, though he had already been given his role in the garden. And if that man, much like you, if he would have remembered what God told him to do and who he was, that fall wouldn't have happened. But we know it's neither here nor there, because look what the Lord did on the other side of that fall. You understand? So he's telling us one person, I'm going to give you one husband. I'm going to give you one wife. And, Pastor, let me ask you, did he talk about dating in the Bible? Is dating
not in that
Bible?
reference?
No, no dating.
No.
He brought that wife, right?
He brought her.
Brought her, didn't he?
There you go. He knew exactly what Adam needed, and so in
suitable
my mind,
for him.
Yes, suitable, not compatible. You know how we like to say, "Oh, well, they're not really my type." Do we really know our type? So I think even
That's
in that instant, the Lord was really showing us. Yeah. First of all, I know better, but it felt like just in that moment. Yeah. Just referencing that story, that he was giving us a blueprint for our relationships. God first. Yeah. And I know exactly what you need, and you might think you know what you need, and you may also allow yourself to step outside of your role, and that will ultimately end up in disaster.
I like what you said in terms of taking us all the way back to Genesis, and Adam's identity was found in God. Yes. First. And God was laying, like you said, the blueprint, so that others, there was no need for Eve to complete him, because he was already completed. Absolutely. He already had intimacy with God. That's a good word for young people that are trying to find identity through others. This is a good word for adults, trying to find someone to complete them. And really, Jesus says that we are complete in him. Yes. That's such a good word. So, Frankie, what about for you? What do you think God is saying or wants to say to young people through this?
Well, I think it's talked about a lot in church, right? You don't have sex until you're married. And I think that would be the ideal, right, for our children. For sure, you would want them to wait. But I think that when we have these slip ups, right? When there's these things, I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh my gosh, I waited until I was married." I mean, it didn't pan out that way for me, And I know, and you know what? I had a child very, very young in life, and I look at my daughter, and she is the most beautiful thing in the world to me, right?
She is.
But I do wish that I would have waited, not because the world told me that, but because as I got closer to God, he said, "Let me be your everything." Yes. Let me be your everything. Yes. And then everything else falls into place. And I think that's a hard concept for teens and even adults to really understand what it means to have God as your everything, what it means to have intimacy with the Father. We can go by things that we're told, things that we're taught, but to truly experience intimacy with the Father first, I mean, there's nothing like it.
Yes.
I mean, it's the beauty in it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I think that
That's good.
I think that although God is a loving God and he understands and he takes us as we are, I think it brings him so much joy for the ones who really take the time to just wait.
Yes. Yes.
Such good practical advice. You know, I know Mosaic has some resources that I'm really excited for you all to share, but I also want you to talk about how Mosaic is supporting kids, youth, and parents, but more broadly, what are some other resources that parents can take advantage of, that youth can access? What are some other resources that may come to mind?
Well, I would be remiss if I did not say I would definitely point children in the direction of God.
Yeah.
But we also want them to feel
Right.
that they are able to talk to their parents about
Yes.
what's going on in their
Yes.
lives.
Yeah.
We can point them to every resource in the world, but ultimately we
That's
want
good,
to
Demetra.
strengthen those family bonds
Yes.
within the home. That's
Yeah.
your first ministry. And we want to be connectors. We want to connect children with their parents or a trusted adult, someone who will
Yeah.
really feed into them and help them navigate, these confusing situations. Because even we as adults, we experience some of the same confusing situations. But also, we want to be resources for them and their families,
Absolutely.
to help them navigate. We're all going through something, and I think when you begin to develop a strong sense of community, that really helps people understand that, hey, you're not in this alone.
Right,
We're
right.
all experiencing these things, but we want to help you navigate those tough situations. So, and then there is, many of you may be familiar with it, there are Stitch Ministries. It offers free counseling. It's not based on your ability to pay, but they're really helpful. There is Focus on the Family. And one that
Very good resource.
I almost forgot, it's called Teencentral.com. I actually worked with this organization maybe several years ago, I guess. And what it is, it's an online site where youth, specifically teens, can go. Let's say, for example, they're struggling with anxiety. They can actually find the topic of anxiety, share exactly what they're going through,
nice.
and an online counselor will help them
Really?
begin to navigate those things. So I was
Wow,
so
what a
glad.
wonderful resource.
Yes, I was so glad that God reminded me, hey,
Yeah.
some things that would be really helpful. And it was really helpful
Yeah.
for me to see that there are so many young people experiencing these things, but there were so many people willing to help,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah. And at the end, we'll list those resources
Yes.
that are available. Thank you for sharing those.
I want to jump back really
Yeah.
quick to Stitch Ministries. They are a counseling facility, a counseling group.
Christian based, right?
Yes, Christian
Yes.
based. But what I really want to hone in on is that sometimes it's not just the children who need counseling.
Yes.
There
I
is
feel
family.
like you're looking at me.
I am.
Oh, okay.
You knew before you said that.
There is family counseling, and in my family growing up, I would say maybe even in the Hispanic culture, counseling is not something that we talk about.
Yes.
It's like, girl, you better pull yourself up
Suck it
by
up,
your
suck it
bootstraps
up,
and
yes.
get
Yes.
it together. And so counseling is something that has been near and dear to my heart, because we are a family that comes from divorce and things like that. And so it has really helped our family a lot to just have a safe place that we can go together and have that mediator.
So good.
Yes.
To talk about the things that are on our
Yes.
mind
Wow.
and that are in our heart. And it's so good when you see your kids start opening that bottle inside their heart and
Yes.
releasing those
Yes.
things. And so I really, really want to encourage that, Stitch Ministries is great for teens, but it's also great for just parents.
Yes.
It's also great for you individually. It's good for the family.
Yes.
And so I really wanted to share that about that. And also, guys, for our mini and for our junior life changers, we upload content on Facebook every Sunday. and that allows for your kids to get involved in church too. Definitely with everything being virtual and online, sometimes our kids kind of get pushed to the wayside. And so I want to make sure that you guys are utilizing those resources. It's great content with great music and great messages. So be on the lookout for that every Sunday morning. We also have, for our teens, you are not forgotten.
That's right.
We have been putting our thinking caps on, and we have been trying to adjust to this COVID new normal. And so we want to make sure that we are letting you guys in on what's happening. So be on the lookout for a new Instagram Mosaic page for sure.
Stepping up.
Yeah, it's time that we get in the world, the virtual world too. And so we'll have that. And also there you'll be able to find some new meetups, whether that's Zoom or whether we're hanging out at a park, social distancing, of course, but just hanging out and having fun and getting to know one another and catching up and doing all that fun stuff. So be on the lookout for that as well.
So awesome. You know, I want to say as we wrap up, parents, we're on your side, and we're here as the Mosaic team to provide you encouragement, resources, and giving you the tools so that you can help to navigate your children and your youth through this crazy maze that they're living in.
Yes.
We trust that you've been blessed. And ladies, I want to thank you again, Demetria, Frankie. Y'all are amazing. Y'all are a real blessing, not only to me, but to our church. Well, until next time, God bless you and God keep you is our prayer.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord.
Come on, sing that again. You give life.
You give life, you are love, you bring light to the darkness, you give hope, you restore every heart that is broken. Great are you, Lord.
It's your breath. church. Let's sing it again together. All the earth. And all the earth will shout your praise. Our hearts will cry.
These bones will sing.
Great are you, Lord. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, we pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to Holy God. Somebody worship, somebody worship.
In our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise.
Somebody worship, somebody worship.
So we pour out our praise to you.
Somebody worship.
In our lungs, so we pour out our praise. We pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you.
It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise, pour out our praise. It's your breath in our lungs, so we pour out our praise to you.
Great are you, Lord.
Can you sing that? Great are you, Lord.
Great are you, Lord.
No matter what you're going through, can you just sing that line? Great are you, Lord.
Great are you, Lord.
So I lift my worship.
Great are you, Lord.
So I lift my heart of gratitude.
Here's my heart.
You're the life giver.
Great are you, Lord.
And you are my heart's mender.
Great are you, Lord.
Father, we just thank you for your love, Jesus. Life Change Church, that's a wrap. We love you. Hey, one more thing. Go and be the change.
Thanks for joining us today. Here at Life Change Church, we believe you can have thriving, transformative life change through your relationship with Jesus Christ. If you would like to partner with us as a financial supporter, go to thechangesa.org. Click on the Give button and share an amount that will help us in spreading life change around the world. Thanks again. Now let's go and be the change.